Hello, my name is Jenna Shireman. This is my capstone research summary. To begin, the research topic that I have chosen is the effects of UFLI on student reading fluency. So seeing if my students can read at a faster pace after being exposed to the UFLI curriculum. My problem statement is that students in my classroom have a general distaste for reading. When given the option, they will always avoid it, and because of that, their scores suffer. I have several students who are reading more than 2 grades below their actual grade level. They cannot read fluently, and they also cannot comprehend a given text. So my research question was, will the implementation of UFLI impact students' reading fluency scores? The products associated with my research are the UFLI placement test, the UFLI teacher's manual, and the CBM reading progress monitoring test. They were given the UFLI placement test and the CBM test at the beginning of this unit of instruction and again at the end. Here I have attached some pages in the UFLI teacher's manual to give you a visual of what it looked like. This manual is really nice as it walks you through all the steps that you need to teach the students. UFLI also provides physical hands-on boards for the children to work with, as well as handwriting boards and a digital version as well. The methods that I used within my data collection were all quantitative. The way that I measured student success was via their numerical score that they were given on both the UFLI placement test as well as the CBM reading. The data collection tools that I used are the UFLI placement test and the CBM reading progress monitoring. The images attached are those tests. The way that I analyzed growth or lack thereof was by comparing the initial score on both tests to the final score and analyzing whether or not it went up. However, I do want to note that if the UFLI placement test score did not go up, then there would be no correlation between the two and this research would have been ineffective. However, as you can see based on these graphs, everything went up. These students were very successful with the implementation of UFLI. The light blue bar on both graphs shows where they started, and the dark blue bar shows where each student ended. Every single student made significant growth on both the UFLI placement test and their CBM reading, meaning that at the end of this, they could read more fluently. The results of this research were overwhelmingly positive. My students could make growth. They made a lot of growth, and it showed in daily lessons. They were more willing to read out loud. They were more willing to participate. They could read more fluently. They were wanting to pick books out of my library. The conclusion that I drew from this is that there is a correlation between UFLI implementation and reading fluency, and UFLI does, in fact, improve reading fluency. Some strengths of this research, UFLI has a very engaging curriculum for students. They were excited to do it every day. They enjoyed doing it. Another thing is, because of how I did this, I did it in a small group with a small group intervention, so I was able to give those lower striving students some of that one-on-one attention that they need to improve. Some weaknesses, because of only having 20 minutes a day within my small groups, they were often having to pause lessons in the center and continue them on the next day, which could have caused a little bit of loss of retention for the kids. And then I didn't have enough time for some of those expansion activities. So taking home that decodable and really working through it and getting to read it multiple times, some of that we didn't have the time to allow that to happen. Some influential factors that I believe might have affected my students' scores. As I mentioned before, they really enjoyed engaging in the UFLI content. They always wanted to do it, and because of that, I think that they would have had a higher retention. I think that they paid attention more, and really just retained all that information that they needed. They are also getting to an age where they are very self-aware. And because of that, they realize that they're the lower group and they are very determined to pull themselves up to where they need to be. And because of that, they were very willing to engage with whatever content was given to them, which again would have influenced their scores to be higher. The only negative influential factor, because of how this unit of instruction went and because of using the small group, the students often only spent 1 week per instruction, yes, but that also meant that within 5 weeks apart of taking the test, they may have forgotten that initial passage. And since part of fluency is repetition, that may have decreased their ability to read fluently because they may have forgotten that initial read of that passage, which would have erased the repetition. Some areas for further investigation that I think would be very interesting are the effects of earlier UFLI intervention for lifelong reading fluency. My students are fourth graders. I would love to see this implemented at a kindergarten level and be able to see what that does for them over time. And some suggestions for research questions that I have for this are, does implementing UFLI from a kindergarten level ensure students remain fluent throughout their lives? And how long are the lasting effects of UFLI when it is no longer implemented? Because this is a foundational reading skills unit of instruction. It is intended especially in the state of Missouri, for kindergarten through second grade, and my students are lacking that foundational skill. So I'm interested to see on how long that could be retained for students. Thank you so much for listening.